We've got a really exciting show ahead of us tonight with 3 wonderful back-to-back episodes on sustainability and the climate. First up, we'll be hearing from A Wilder West all about rewilding and conservation in the southwest. Next up, the EcoEdit will be exploring sustainable lifestyle choices from fashion to food and e-conscious travel. We'll be wrapping up with The Wild Kitchen, taking us on a deeper dive into sustainable food, with a guest appearance from a chef that forages for her ingredients, followed by a live cooking demonstration to inspire you for this weekend. So, strap in, we really hope you enjoy, and let's get on with the show.
Hello, I'm Nat.
And I'm Rachel.
And welcome to A Wilder West. Today we'll be taking you on a tour of the southwest, beginning with Ollie, live from the Avon Gorge, who'll be introducing us to the wildlife that can be found there, including the apex predator of the ecosystem.
We will also be tuning in to Anna Maria, who's performing a live dissection, exploring the food webs of the southwest. You will then be joining Ollie on a wilderness safari through the Forest of Dean with expert naturalist Ed Druitt.
After that, we'll be talking to the University of Bristol's Wildlife Film Society about their upcoming documentary, The Secrets of the Southwest, so stay tuned for that.
And then back to the Avon Gorge, where Ollie will be getting up close and personal with a few of its residents, the hairy conservationists. But more on that one later.
We want to know about your encounters with nature and how they may have left you wanting to know more.
As we near the end of National Garden Wildlife Week, we will be opening this week's Q&A to queries about how our gardens can give nature a helping hand.
Yes, so please do scan the QR code to submit any interesting tips or anecdotes from your gardens, along with anything else you'd like us to help out with. We'll be discussing these suggestions towards the end of the programme before rejoining Ed and Ollie for a more in-depth conversation about wilding the reforest of Dean. Finally, we'll head back to the studio to have a chat about some of our favourite books on rewilding.
It's a jam-packed show today, looking at lots of different animals that you can see across the southwest. But what about the ones closer to home?
Only 1.5 miles from the bustling centre of Bristol is the Avon Gorge. This is a national site for conservation and scientific interest, home to a wide variety of animals and over 30 species of rare plants.
As someone who's lived in Bristol for several years, I can definitely say it's one of the best places to explore and get involved with wildlife.
If we look at this map here, we can see the area of the Avon Gorge, spanning the Downs, the Suspension Bridge and Lee Woods, and the incredible biodiversity that can be found here as well.
We've got badgers and foxes, peregrine falcons and so many wonderful rare plants in the Avon Gorge. Hopefully this has made some of you feel inspired to go and explore the wide biodiversity that the gorge has to offer.
Well, our wildlife reporter Ollie is doing just that. Let's drop in on Ollie now and see how he's doing in the very windy Avon Gorge.
Hello everyone, I'm Ollie, a science communicator at the University of Bristol, and I'm in a great mood because I'm in one of my favourite places in the whole city. It's the Avon Gorge. At White Ladies Road and take a 10-minute stroll down Clifton Downs, you will find this viewing point, and as you can see is an absolutely breathtaking view. Although, as you may also be able to hear, it is very windy at the moment, so apologies for any difficulties with the audio. Another thing I love about this gorge is that it's so accessible. Can you believe that within an hour's walk from the city centre you can arrive here, so anyone can come here in Bristol. But of course this gorge is not just a pretty view, it's also a biodiversity hotspot in Bristol. So many species can be found in this gorge, right the way down from our little invertebrates such as the silky wave moth. And did you know that other than Bristol, there are only 2 other sites in the UK where you can find the silky wave moth, so it's a really special spot. There's also the hill cuckoo bee and the purseweb spider, which are both very rare invertebrates, and you can find them on this gorge. I would love to show you these species right now, but it does take a very long time to find them. Although if you come here on your own, I bet you'd be amazed at what you find if you do have a look. It's not just invertebrates though, there are also so many mammals here. I'm talking about foxes and weasels and hedgehogs and voles and even horseshoe bats, which are endangered. And you might have more luck finding those mammals if you come for a sunset walk, because most of those mammals are nocturnal, so they do prefer to come out at night. And of course, the peregrine falcons, which I did see one about 5 minutes ago. I don't know if I'll be lucky enough to catch one right now. They are one of the most amazing birds ever, because they are, when they're diving, they can reach a speed of 300 kilometers an hour, which is the fastest, which makes it the fastest bird in the whole world. But it's not just the fastest bird in the whole world, it is the fastest animal in the entire world, and you can find it in Bristol. Isn't that amazing?
Give me okay, folks.
And finally, the Avon Gorge. It's not just incredible for wildlife, it's incredible for people too, because there's so much mental health benefits from coming here and visiting it. It's just so relaxing to take a stroll around here and find peace of mind in nature and just lose yourself in this feeling with the fresh air blowing through your hair and the birds flying around at eye level. God, it just makes me so relaxed, and I love seeing other people strolling around here as well. I do recommend you come and take a look if you do manage to find some free time, because it can be so busy in Bristol and it's important to take time out for nature as well. Thank you so much for listening to me rant about the gorge. Back to the studio.
And that was Ollie, live, celebrating the wonderful biodiversity of the Avon Gorge. Thanks for that, Ollie. One way to keep track of the biodiversity of a region is to look at the number of prey items, which of course support animals higher up the food chain that feed on them. A good and non-invasive method of looking at small mammal biodiversity is by studying the diet composition of birds of prey. On that note, we will be joining Anna Maria live as she shows us how this can be done. Anna Maria, are you there?
Yes, Rachel, I'm here. And I'm actually in the laboratory spaces
At the University of Bristol, where I've been protecting my live owl. So the owl is actually flying. So as you can see, I've got the whole thing set up here. So barn owls are and they are adapted for hunting. They mainly feed on small mammals, and the way they do that is by swallowing their prey whole. Because the prey is swallowed whole, that means that there's a whole load of non-digestible items in pellets, such as fur, bone, feathers, and all this magical stuff. These pellets provide an excellent opportunity to see not only on our activity, but also to see what sort of small animals are within their territory and the amount of them that there are as well. So yeah, let's begin the dissection here. So as you can see, someone up. So this is a dry pellet, and as you can see, it is very, very dry. So here's what I said earlier, that I wetted down. So yeah, let's begin dissection. I can actually see a skull here. So let's have a go at trying to remove that. So this is a bit of a dirty job here. Here we go. Oh my goodness, look at this. That is one big skull. There we go. So as you can see, it's quite dirty, the skull. So actually, if we just take that out. So normally we sort of like cleaned up. So here's the more cleaner skull from earlier. So this one, see that there. We also have a massive skull and skull. So hopefully you guys in the studio can see that as well. So yeah, why is it important to dissect our pellets? So barn owls tend to eat like these small critters, and gives an idea of the habitat and conditions that they are in. So voles are sort of the optimal choice for the barn owl. But as we can see from the data, the absolute numbers of bulls over the years have been in drastic decline. So this is because there's been a loss of hedgerow, and the growth of sort of agriculture of the years, loss of rough grassland areas, which actually provide habitat for these small mammals to live and grow in. Also, the heavy use of pesticides as well, resulting in the reduction in their numbers as well. So what can be done to protect barn owl numbers going forward? So allow natural hedgerows to grow, as well as grasslands as well. Also avoiding the use of pesticides as well in agricultural land. And also creating as well like artificial nest sites along the perimeter of like trees around these farmlands will all benefit our. So what that can be done here in the lab, I'd like to thank the University of Bristol Science team of technicians for helping me to get my hands dirty. Back to you in the studio, Rachel.
Thank you, Anna Maria. We'd recommend our viewers at home to go hunting for outposts in green spaces near them if they can find them. It's great fun identifying the differences between these small mammal skulls and bones. But travelling outside of Bristol for just short of an hour, we come across the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire. Ollie visited this historic, sprawling woodland on the border of England and Wales earlier this week to meet the local naturalist Edgeworth wildlife safari.
Dean Edgeworth, the naturalist, has kindly invited us to his home, and he's going to give us a little tour around his neck of the woods. Come and join us.
Now, one of the issues we do have in Britain is that we have a lot of deer, and we probably have more deer in Britain than the country's ever had before. One of the issues with that, though, is that even somewhere like here in the Forest of Dean, you can end up with overbrowsing. And if you have overbrowsing where too much plant life is being eaten, then actually you lose layers. You lose your herb layer down at the ground, you lose your shrub layer, and that removes two really important kind of habitats really for nature, whether it's dormice, whether it's butterflies, or whether it's birds. But here we're actually on the northeast edge of the Forest of Dean, and so actually we have lower densities of deer, and I can tell that just simply by looking at the structure of this bit of woodland, because actually we have a herb layer. We can see we've got bramble, and although people often disregard bramble as being very annoying because in urban areas it can just grow up and cover over everything, it's an important plant in a woodland like this. You don't want it smothering everything, but you still want bramble here. It provides food for moth caterpillars, it provides blossom and flowers for insects like butterflies, for example. But also we've got some hazel. So over there, for example, and just on your right hand side here, we've got some hazel here. So having hazel in a woodland like this is important. Hazel is an important understory tree, providing food for caterpillars, providing nuts for small mammals, and also, you know, other insects for other birds. So actually when you look around us here, you can see that there is a herb layer, there is a shrub layer, it's being turned around by the wild boar, but there isn't too much of an issue of overbrowsing here. So we do still have fallow deer here, but not too much. But across the Forest of Dean as a whole, the deer and the boar are managed, so they are culled, and that's because, you know, we don't have wolves, we don't have lynx anymore, and so their numbers still have to be kept in check to make sure that we don't end up with a woodland environment like this being completely, you know, overeaten, overdug, overbrowsed and things like that. Let's wander along though and just see what else we can spot. What you do get a sense of as we walk along is how the boar just shuffle the soil around. This is really good for the earthworms because it helps the soil, the leaves to go into the soil so it can munch it up. And we have lots of dung beetles here in the Forest of Dean. They're called woodland door beetles. They bury the poo of the deer and the boar. And again, this nice loose soil makes it much easier for them to bury that poo and have little tunnels going down underneath the soil. The other thing in here as well is that this oak tree over here, for example, has some dead branches on it, and further over in this bit of woodland there is a dead oak tree, and standing dead wood is really important for wildlife. We need lots of fallen dead wood. We don't have enough of that in our woodlands. So Forestry England, who manage the Forest of Dean, along with organisations that manage certain areas on their behalf, so RSPB, Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust, leave a lot of fallen dead wood, but also where it's safe to, we'll also have standing dead wood. That one's obviously still alive, but further along there is another tree that is completely dead, and that will provide different sorts of habitats for woodpeckers, spotted flycatchers, wood-boring beetles and fungi.
Wow. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that nature trail as much as I did. That man has so much to say and I learned so much from him.
What a great nature trail with Ed. A great nature trail with Ed. It's amazing how much knowledge he has about the wildlife within the beloved Forest of Dean. We'll be joining Ed again later in the show, where he'll be talking more about the reintroduction of wild boar and beavers in the UK. Also, please don't forget to send in your stories and queries about your gardens. We've had loads of great responses already. I'll be going through these shortly. So please keep on sending them your questions, as we love to hear from you. As you've heard so far, Bristol and the surrounding regions are home to some amazing wildlife. An upcoming documentary made by students at the University of Bristol is hoping to showcase some of these animals on film. We're joined now in the studio by the current president of the Wildlife Film Society, Ollie Pink. So Ollie, can you tell us more about the society?
Absolutely. So the Wildlife Film Society at Bristol Uni is just a group of students who really, really love nature. And we go out there and film and photograph the local animals.
That's great. So as a society, you have done some filming in the gorge already. So why is it important to film locally within Bristol?
I think the main thing is it's accessibility. So we want to keep everything accessible for our group. You know, we're only students, we can't afford to go on all these fancy shoots like the BBC do. So keeping it local, keeping it accessible is a great way to get more people involved.
So I know the Wildlife Film Society makes several productions, one of which is an upcoming documentary film this year called Secrets of the Southwest. Are you able to tell us anything about the project?
Absolutely. So this is a film about the wildlife of the Southwest. So basically things right under our doorstep and in our back gardens. So we film things from foxes and peregrine falcons all the way up to even sort of like the grey seals and puffins of Skomer Island. It was a really, really fun film to make, and the Society are going to be releasing it in autumn if anyone wants to watch it.
So I know it's probably top secret stuff going on, you're in the production phase at the moment, but have you got any personal highlights of any animals that you filmed so far for the documentary?
Absolutely. So I think my personal highlight of this whole film was with me and my fellow producer Luke. Were out filming and we stumbled across a juvenile pine marten in the middle of the day. Now, for those that don't know, they're sort of small weasel-like mustelids. They're the most elusive mammal in Britain, and it was just amazing to see and capture its behaviour.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. We're really looking forward to seeing that. So thank you, Ollie, for once again sharing some information about Secrets of the Southwest. The release date will be this autumn. We're now going to return to our field reporter, Ollie Stevens, on a segment he filmed earlier this week in the Avon Gorge, where he encountered, let's just say, some hairy conservationists.
Oh, I think they've been spotted. Wait, no, false alarm, sorry. Okay guys, I don't know if you can see that over there, but we found the goats. They're having a little browse at the moment, and I think it looks like a couple of them are trying to get to some trees, so we better go take a closer look. Come on. Grazing animals are a fundamental and necessary force of natural disturbance and can be excellent for conservation. Before the arrival of humans, parts of the UK would have looked like the plains of Africa, where grazing animals like the European bison, moose and wild horses would have been seen roaming across the grasslands. However, the hunting of these animals to extinction in the UK thousands of years ago has had terrible consequences for the biodiversity of our plants and animal species. Since we have lost these primeval mega-grazers, we've had to introduce other herbivores to take on their roles. Goats were introduced to this gorge to help the rare insect and plant species to grow and thrive. Known as the hairy conservationists, goats naturally prefer to snack on vegetation that's woody and scrubby, rather than grasses and wildflowers. Thanks to these goats in this gorge, rare tree species like the Bristol whitebeam, which by the way can only be found in this gully, can survive and flourish. And then tree species like that, along with mosses and lichens, can provide amazing habitats for nesting birds and all kinds of invertebrates, which is also great for pollination. And across the country, grazing species are being reintroduced, which were previously extinct. And that includes horses, boar, beavers, and even recently reintroduced wild bison. And they're all playing a crazy important role in the conservation of plants and animals in the UK. I don't know how I'm going to come down. Ooh. Because it's so steep here, it's a place that only goats can really, oh.
In the absence of natural predators, the goats would spread themselves far and wide, and probably end up encroaching into residential places. But when they're kept safely in this gully enclosure, they can be managed easily and checked on every day by members of Bristol City Council. The largest predatory mammals in the gorge landscape nowadays are foxes. Unlike the urban foxes living in the streets of Bristol, who mainly survive off scraps of food from rubbish bins, these wilder foxes rely on eating smaller mammals, like voles and mice. Last week we managed to observe a young family of foxes. Take a look.
Thanks for that, Ollie, for the wonderful insight into the crucial conservation roles of wild browsers like the goats of Goat Gully in Bristol.
The Avon Gorge and Downs Wildlife Project is a fantastic example of a successful conservation project.
And, as Ollie mentioned earlier in the programme, the gorge truly offers some beautiful views and is definitely worth a visit.
But moving on, we've had the chance to look through some of your fantastic garden query submissions to the QR code. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in a response. We're just going to go through a few of them now. So we've got someone saw a blue tit today.
We've had tips on improving soil quality, a really good question, thank you for that.
Oh, someone saw a peregrine falcon.
A really good tip actually. Coffee grounds make for a great fertiliser, so for our person that wants to know how to improve soil quality, maybe give that one a go.
Oh, and have wildlife corridors in between garden fences to allow the animals to move between gardens. That's also a great tip. So now we have time to just answer one of the questions that we've got, and this one is a fantastic question from Sarah in Wiltshire. Can we get this up on the screen for those at home to see what Sarah asked? So, now I have retired and spend more time in the garden, I wanted to include a small pond to provide a source of food, water and a breeding ground for local wildlife. With family help, we upcycled 2 old half barrels and used an old tree stump and a few stones to create different levels in the water, incorporating a selection of water mint, water violet, irises, frog bit and water parsnip. The containers are in direct sunlight for part of the afternoon. My question is, if we have a heat wave like we did in 2023, will the pond life survive, or do I need to consider providing shade over the containers should we have a sustained period of over 30 degrees C? That's a brilliant question there from Sarah. And can I also say that your natural wildlife pond sounds really cool. What a great way to rewild a section of your garden.
Yeah, definitely. And with heat waves like the one we experienced last year projected to become more likely, we should definitely be doing all we can to reinforce our garden wildlife against a warming climate. You are right to be concerned.
So, I'm going to answer this with, I think the best thing you can do is to keep your ponds topped up to fight against evaporation. And ideally this would be using rainwater from a water butt, or even storing water in shaded watering cans and buckets for a day, as water straight from a tap often contains these organic concentrates that can be toxic to your pond life. I hope that answered your question, Sarah. And thanks again for sending it in. What a great suggestion for a fun family activity to do this week to celebrate the end of National Garden Wildlife Week.
Exactly. And we have more on rewilding coming up next, with Ollie again in the Forest of Dean, with boars, beavers and rewilding non-believers.
The Tory councillor, I think it's called Alan Priest, and he said that rewilding efforts in the Forest of Dean have been catastrophic and a mess. And he even he referred to residents being unhappy. And Alan Titchmarsh got a mention. He's a famous wildlife gardener and TV presenter, and he warned that trendy rewilded gardens are catastrophic for biodiversity. Do you think they've got a point, or maybe barking up the wrong tree there?
Yeah, I think that they've completely missed the point totally.
Right.
The issue with rewilding is that it's quite a charged term and word, and so actually a lot of organisations just use the word wilding today, so give this sense of, rather than redoing something, that you're just, you know, allowing certain places to become a little bit more wild.
Yeah.
But they have got the wrong end of the stick in many respects, really. For some people, rewilding or wilding is about introducing walls and links into places. For some people, the definition in their mind is that you're just letting everything go. And that's not the case. So somewhere like the Forest of Dean, for example, where you do have some important conservation projects being done by the RSPB, the Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust and Forestry England itself, it's about, you're still having management techniques to just make sure that all those kind of important systems in the ecosystem here are happening, really. So this idea of rewilding, or I tend to, you know, use the word wilding, it's actually about, you know, having the wild boar here, doing the rootling, but obviously managing their numbers so that they're not re-rootling stuff and redoing it stuff. And if their numbers are kept in check, they're not then going to come into towns and villages and have a conflict with people. So I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what wilding or rewilding actually is. But from where I am as a biologist, an ecologist and a naturalist, taking people out all the time, really, I'm seeing the benefits all the time. I'm seeing how the boar are shuffling the woodland floor around. I'm seeing those kind of clear spaces that the boar provide. I'm seeing the dung beetles. I'm hearing the bird song.
Wow. So I heard as well, it's not just wild boar. I've also heard that a few beavers were released in 2018, and I was wondering, are they still around?
Yeah, so when it comes to sort of almost bringing back some of those important systems that you need in a woodland environment, you know, forests all across Britain are gasping for wild boar, but fortunately we've got them here, bringing some breathing space to the forest. We do have conservation grazing cows in some parts of the forest, particularly on Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust land, and they're kind of replicating the behaviour that aurochs would have done. Aurochs would have been huge wild cows living here 1,000 years ago, now extinct. Again, woodlands and forests are gasping for this animal that would have been pushing small trees down, pooing in different places, providing food for those dung beetles, which in turn helped to ventilate the soil and things like that. Now, the beavers were brought back mainly as a flood prevention role to stop the flooding of a village called Lidbrook. They're in a very long enclosure, because the idea is we don't want them going somewhere else. We want them in a particular part of the forest, preventing floods further downstream. But they have done a remarkable job just in 5 years. They've created woodland pools that weren't there before. They've created these wonderful dams that are holding back the water. We're seeing birds like gooseanders using these pools now, but they're never there before because there's going to be fish there. I've seen frogs spawn in these pools that again would never have been spawning in the stream. So trying to re-wet and keep the forest wet is really important for lots of different wildlife, such as rare butterflies, such as the small pearl border, which does need, I think, a damper woodland environment than perhaps what we've had in recent years.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you to our field reporter Ollie Stevens. Well, thank you to our field reporter Ollie Stevens and Ed Root again for such an insightful discussion. Going back to our sequence where I dissect the barn out segments, Ed actually has an upcoming book coming out that explores bird pellets further. The book is called Bird Pellets, a complete photographic guide, and it provides you with all the information you need if you ever plan on doing a spontaneous owl pellet dissection. Talking of books, we're actually at the point of the show where we end on some book recommendations. This week's theme of book recommendations is rewilding and conservation. So the first book I have is Wilding by Isabella Tree. If I can actually get a close-up of the book cover, which is absolutely gorgeous. There we go. So it actually features an image of a turtle dove, which is actually one of the rare bird species that is breeding at Knepp. So Wilding focuses on how Isabella Tree and her husband Charlie Burrell turned their farm estate in Sussex into Knepp Rewilding Project. Their ambition was to restore their estate from heavily industrialised farmland back to nature. After introducing longhorn cattle, Tamworth pigs, Exmoor ponies and various deer species to the estate to begin the process of grazing the land, wildlife soon returned to the reserve. Or the estate, sorry. Knepp has become a breeding haven for peregrine falcons, lesser spotted woodpeckers and yellowhammers, as well as critically endangered nightingales and the turtle doves. As well as writing other books that focuses on the introduction of species, so let me grab this one here, is by Mackay called Wilder, which actually focuses on restoration of nature taking place in the global south. So there's an image of the cover there. We also actually have books such as Real Wild in the Sea by Charles Clover, and let me just grab the other one here. This is Rebirding by Benedict MacDonald, so a really good read, so I definitely recommend all of those. So I would like to thank all of you who submitted your garden stories to us. Apologies for those stories we didn't have time to read out. But keep tuned in to Better Planet Live, where up next, see how you can make your life more sustainable. That's it from us. See you next week.
Hi guys, I'm your host Jodie Sim, and thank you for tuning in to Better Planet Live. I have some amazing guests lined up for you, and they're going to shed some light on how we can make our summer lifestyles a little bit more sustainable. As summer approaches, it's time for pub gardens and barbecues in the sun. And before we catch up with our experts, we're going to get an idea of what environmental sustainability really is. Environmental sustainability is essentially preserving the environment while still maintaining our social and economic well-being. But why is this our responsibility? The oceans, the soil, the air, all accounts and underpins our very well-being. We're in a climate crisis, and while the extra heat might feel great for our tans, the environment is experiencing devastating losses across the world. But there is still so much hope and positivity. So, to get started, we want you, the viewers, to send in your sustainability confessions. It's hard not to feel the weight of the climate crisis, and rest assured we all struggle to live sustainably 24/7. So, we want to hear what it is that you struggle with when it comes to sustainability. For example, I'm an environmentalist, but I love to go on holidays abroad. So scan the QR code, send in your confessions, and we'll come back to these at the end of the show to discuss. Now, I am so excited to introduce our very first guest, local expert in sustainable activities, Hattie Doyle. Hattie is going to talk to us about how we can be mindful of our local environment while still making a splash. So Hattie, I'm really looking forward to speaking to you. I think we've got a really cool video coming up. I'm excited. There's a little bit of a surprise at the end as well. I'll catch you soon.
Thank you, Jodie. And today you join me on Avon's River Nature Trail. So behind me you can see the River Avon and maybe some ducks potentially. New studies have suggested that spending just 2 hours a week outdoors in nature can improve your well-being, your mental health and your connection to nature. Nature trails are more than just pathways through the wilderness. They're really important to making sure that human traffic stays off the vegetation and in one path. What about, but I can get in this, oh, see, it's tricky. Ugh. When we're walking on these nature trails, it's really important that we act along the leave no trace principles, which includes things like taking all your rubbish with you, picking up any rubbish that you might see along, and just generally leaving the place in a better state than you found it. So choosing to spend your days on beautiful nature trails like this one can improve your connection to the local environment, which has been shown to have really positive effects on local environmental movements. You might choose to get involved in a river cleanup, for example. You might choose to do some education around wildlife that you might see in this area. All of this can boost local conservation efforts. Given the fact that 80% of children can't accurately identify a bumblebee, taking them to spaces like this can help connect the youth with the environment. I'm on my way to one of Bristol's best loved open water swimming spots to dive headfirst into the ever-growing trend of wild swimming. So as we can see, I'm now in the wild swimming spot. Wild swimming is known to have lots of amazing health benefits, as well as connecting us with the environment. But it's important that we do this mindfully to protect the beautiful environment that we can see behind us. The first way you can do this is by making sure you're not putting any harsh chemicals on your skin. Things like sun cream, although it's important to protect yourself from the beautiful sun that we see above us, it's also important that we protect ourselves and the environment. And you can do this by going online and making sure that your sun cream that you're using is water safe. Another thing that's also really important is making sure that we're taking care of our headways and our waterways. So making sure that you're not disturbing any local wildlife, keeping these open water swimming spots the beautiful preserves that they are.
I don't know about you guys, but I am ready to get in.
That's all from me for now. I'm going to take a quick dip and I'll catch you back in the studio. Time's coming.
We're back in the studio now with Hattie Doyle. Hattie, my love.
Hello.
Was that your first time while swimming?
Believe it or not, that was not my first time swimming.
Are you professional? You do it?
I could be now. After that, I felt it, yeah. No one else came in with me, so...
Yeah, how did that discussion go down?
There was no discussion. It was, you're getting in, and I'm not. And that's how it went. And I went in.
We've got good friends over here. How can people get involved in their local area? Because if it was me, I wouldn't really know where to start. Not that I want to get involved, but I'm not going to jump into the Thames. Like, where am I joining other people?
Yeah, I would not recommend jumping into the Thames, okay? Wouldn't do that.
My bad.
But you can get involved in a local open water swimming group. So the university has one. It's really good fun. And kind of, yeah, the best part about it is that you get to go with your friends.
Yeah.
So kind of getting a gang together, taking a barbecue, making a day of it.
Yeah. You got to go with your friends, they just
didn't jump in.
They were just...
Next time I will be dragging them.
Worst friends, yeah. Okay, so why do you think that an activity like wild swimming is maybe better than, I don't know, going to the cinema or going shopping with your friends? Those kind of, they're still social, but...
Yeah, of course. Yeah. They're just quite simply less carbon intensive, so obviously like shopping is quite a carbon heavy activity. Buying produce and all that kind of thing. And equally things like the connection to nature that you can get from spending time in the outdoors can really encourage people to take care of their local environment, which I think is also really important.
So Hattie is a very brave, outdoorsy girl. We might not all be the same. So for other people, what would you suggest? Maybe still, as we're still talking sustainable activities, but maybe like a different option. What would you suggest?
I'd say as long, if you're looking for connection to nature, just getting outside. Walking isn't super, carbon intensive. Obviously, there's actually no emissions associated with that one. If you're kind of looking for something a bit more active, something like paddle, even we've played a bit of paddle.
We've played a bit of paddle.
Just getting outdoors and getting to know your local area. Really.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Hattie, thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you again in a second. We are now going to speak to local sustainable fashion expert Sofia Giaconi about how you can make your summer wardrobe more eco-friendly. Sofia has a lineup of looks ready for us, so see how many you can count.
Thank you, Jodie. Sorry about the noise. We are in the shopping centre, Cabot Circus in Bristol, and we're going to be talking about sustainable fashion. So sustainable fashion is becoming more and more popular both among the younger and the older community, but what does it actually mean? It's a term used to describe clothes and garments that are produced in a way which doesn't affect the environment, and it can be sustained over time without depleting resources. So in the case of clothes, we're talking about natural resources such as cotton and linen, but also animal-based resources such as wool, leather or silk. Due to the enormous increase in demand for fast fashion and a continuous want to change our wardrobe, we're quickly depleting these resources and harming the environment. The clothing industry generates 10 tons of textile waste per second, which is responsible for a fifth of the world's ocean pollution. It is one of the biggest pollutants in the world at the moment, accounting for 10% of their annual global emissions. Not to mention the extreme pressure that workers are put under and the cruelties that animals suffer in some of the production processes. So alternatives such as hemp, bamboo, soybean and even algae are now being used to develop new fabrics which are more environmentally conscious and eco-friendly. But what if we can't access these materials because our local shops might not sell them? There's different ways of being more sustainably conscious with our shopping. Firstly, we have to change our mindset of wanting to constantly change our wardrobe, but it's not easy because we're constantly bombarded with people online changing their outfits. Look at me, I've already changed 4 times. This is a 5-minute video. And let's face it, the way you dress is an expression of who you are and how you want to be perceived. So why not go along with it and change your style accordingly? You can even go a step further and make your own clothes. Although this might not be for everyone, it is a good way of understanding the value of clothes, which you might not have when buying clothes from a shop, which might take a few seconds. So I've been faced with this conflict myself, and I decided to go down a more sustainable route. So first of all, you can shop with secondhand shops such as Depop and eBay, where you can find unique and interesting pieces. A final habit to implement in your life to become more sustainable and eco-friendly is this rule. For every 2 or 3 pieces that you put in your closet, you take the same amount out of your closet by donating them to charities or selling them or giving them to someone who might actually use them or like them more. So by implementing these simple rules in your life, you'll become more sustainable and eco-friendly, and your closet can do that too. Back to you in the studio, Jodie.
Going live with Sofia now, who's chatting to documentary filmmaker and sustainable fashion enthusiast Ellie Mackay to get a rundown on her eco-friendly look. Not sure if we have Ellie. Do we have Ellie in the studio yet? For the meantime, if you spotted, Sofia was wearing some gorgeous Dolce & Gabbana jeans in that. They were thrifted, stunning, gorge. Do we have Sofia yet? Are we good with Sofia?
Hi,
Sofia, can you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Were they all of those looks? Are they sustainably sourced?
Absolutely, they were all second-hand charity shop clothes. It was so much fun putting that video together. Honestly, it was really a lot of fun.
Well, you looked amazing. I think you've got Ellie Mackay with you there.
Yes, I have. I'm joined by Ellie Mackay, science communicator and sustainable fashion expert, and I'm just going to be talking a bit about sustainable fashion. So first of all, can you talk me through your outfit?
So I am wearing a completely 100% carbon neutral outfit made from a load of different brands. So my shirt is made from an eco linen, which is made using no natural irrigated water, so it's only from rainwater, natural dyes. I've got a bamboo vest on, which is really good for sportswear or comfy wear because it's really thermally neutral, really warm and cool, really comfortable. My trousers, I don't know if you can see them, are made from eucalyptus and algae, which is a really cool new technology. And even my shoes are made from recycled glass beads and cork, which is a really sustainable and durable material as well.
That is amazing. It's insane. I wanted to ask, what do you look out for, like when you go shopping? What do you look out in clothes?
Yeah, so the first thing I'm going to look at is the material. I always choose natural materials, but that's not normally just enough. So cotton can be really unsustainable. Organic certified cotton, linen, bamboos to make sure it's non-toxic. I'm not going to sweat in it. It's not going to have toxic chemicals on my skin. I'm then also going to look at where it's made or manufactured. And I'm also going to go online and research the website and find out if the company has ethical, sustainable practices. They pay their workers a fair wage, they treat people well, their supply chain is all eco-friendly and human-friendly as well, because climate change and poverty are very much interlinked, so we've got to take care of our fashion workers.
Yeah, of course. And I've got one last question. What advice, it kind of links to what you've already said, but what advice would you give to our viewers to become more sustainable with their shopping?
Fall in love with thrifting, with sustainable shopping. You need to do some research, do some Googling to find out those brands. But it's about falling in love. We have books and DVDs that we keep because we love them, but we throw our clothes away. We need to have an emotional, sentimental response to our clothes, which we love, and they'll keep us going for many, many years.
I agree. Thank you so much. And Jodie, I'll get back to you in the studio.
Thank you for that, Sofia and Ellie. So, when you guys are packing your bags for holiday this summer, think about where your outfits came from. Speaking of holidays, we are going to be joining Kayla on her weekend in Cornwall to learn how to travel greener this summer. Kayla's trip, I believe, was a camping one. Not for everyone, definitely not for me. But we're all excited, and Kayla, excited to see.
Thanks for that, Jodie. This weekend, I travelled to the beautiful coast of Cornwall to visit the Eden Project, a global garden that educates and inspires visitors about the importance of biodiversity, sustainability, and conservation. The goal of the Eden Project is to remind us that we need to respect the natural world and demonstrates that we are a part of nature, not apart from it. Its biomes are designed to mimic natural ecosystems and highlight how interconnected our world is. Inside the two biomes, I got a taste of the tropical rainforest and Mediterranean climates. I was surrounded by thousands of trees, flowers, birds, and even reptiles that play a crucial role in our global ecosystem. The Eden Project not only recreates these environments, but also promotes conservation efforts and sustainable living. It's safe to say that I left the Eden Project feeling very inspired. After a day at the Eden Project, I continued my sustainable travel journey by camping in Cornwall. Camping is a great way to connect with nature, and when done sustainably, it has a minimal environmental impact. Here at the campsite, it's encouraged for guests to practice leave no trace principles and minimize waste to preserve the natural beauty of Cornwall. Leave no trace is an ethical principle embraced by the outdoor community, emphasizing sustainability, longevity, and the conservation of natural areas. It underscores the responsibility of every individual who explores the outdoors to be accountable for their actions. The 7 Leave No Trace principles are as follows. Number 1. Plan ahead and prepare. Proper preparation reduces stress and environmental impact, helping avoid poor decisions that could harm nature. Number 2. Travel and camp on durable surfaces. It's important to stick to designated trails and durable surfaces to minimize erosion and preserve natural areas. Number 3. Dispose of waste properly. Always carry out all trash and waste, ensuring you leave no litter behind. Number 4. Leave what you find. Preserve the environment by leaving natural objects and features undisturbed. Number 5. Minimize campfire impacts. Use camp stoves instead of campfires to prevent damage and maintain the natural landscape. Number 6. Respect wildlife. Observe wildlife from a distance without disturbing or feeding them to protect their habitats. And lastly, number 7. Be considerate of other visitors. Respect the experience of others by minimizing noise and sharing spaces thoughtfully. Traveling sustainably allows us to enjoy nature while protecting it for future generations, whether visiting inspiring places like the Eden Project or camping under the stars. Each eco-friendly choice we make contributes to a better planet. Hope this gave you some inspiration for your next sustainable holiday. Back to you in the studio.
And now I'm joined by Kayla in the studio. Kayla, you had a bit of trouble with the tent there.
Yeah, that happens when you're camping.
I would not know. So, can you kind of like give us an idea of what the current state of tourism is like in the UK?
So tourism is at an all-time high, but something that's kind of new in the most recent years is that polls have found that 71% of UK travelers say that sustainable travel practices are essential to their travel plan making. And 23% of UK travelers choose to travel to a destination closer to home for the sake of sustainability.
That's amazing. Give me 1 or 2 favourite camping hotspots.
Obviously, the beautiful coast of Cornwall is way up there. It's just a lovely, lovely trip. And Colorado is beautiful, Rocky Mountains.
Don't know how Colorado and Cornwall are comparing, but here we are. So, just a reminder to scan the QR code and send in your sustainability confessions. We'll revisit these at the end of the show. Remember, we all struggle to live sustainably all the time, so this is a guilt-free space. Okay, now it is time to pass over to our gorgeous chef, Izzie, who's making some summer pizzas using local produce.
Hey guys, welcome to my sustainable kitchen. Today we're going to be making a sustainable vegetarian pizza. But first of all, the key ingredient to any sustainable meal is, of course, a glass of sustainable wine. So this is Tread Softly, a rosé from Australia. It is vegan and it is sustainably grown. So first of all, we're going to start with the tomato sauce for our pizza. So we've got Isle of Wight tomatoes from the local greengrocers. This is reducing air miles, so better for the environment. And we're going to chop them up and then we're going to blend them for our pizza sauce. After blending the tomatoes, we're going to chop up some garlic and heat that on medium for about 30 minutes to make our tomato sauce. So I've been cooking for quite a few years now, been vegetarian for about 15 years, but that doesn't mean it has to be hard to cook sustainably. Sometimes it's literally just as simple as swapping out like meat for a vegetarian meal every now and then, and as we have to do here today, shopping locally, reducing how far your food has had to travel from farm to plate. A lot of meat production uses a lot of water, produces a lot of carbon dioxide, which contributes to climate change. So meats such as beef especially are really bad with massive water consumption. There's also a lot of antibiotics used in the production of like cattle meats. So by switching to vegetable-based products where you can, you're negating these carbon emissions. So we've got our tomatoes blended, our garlic chopped, and then going to get some basil that I've grown in my garden, and we're going to simmer that over the hob. So growing your own herbs at home is a great way to avoid all the packaging. A lot of them come in the supermarkets. So we're just picking some basil now for the tomato sauce. Okay, so next we're going to get on to making the caramelised red onion, which is going to go on top of our pizza base. So we're going to first of all chop, I'd say about 2 red onions. This is to make 2 pizzas worth. In this recipe we're going to use butter instead of sunflower oil to simmer the onions, because a lot of seed oils like sunflower oil are ultra processed, made on an industrial scale using lots of chemicals which are really bad for the environment. So we're just going to put our veg in there, and then hopefully the worms will do their job and turn it into soil and compost for our garden. So next ingredient to prepare is our asparagus. This is from Kent, so not far away at all. And what we're going to do is we're going to chop the ends off, and then we're going to parboil it for about 2 minutes just to take away the hardness. Then we're going to slice them and put them on our pizza. So now obviously we need our pizza dough. Luckily for me, Brendan, my sous chef, has pre-made this with Cotswold flour, another locally sourced ingredient. So we're going to go get this dough from Brendan. He's a bit slow. Thank you, Brendan. Very nice. We'll save you a bit of pizza at the end. Off we go. So first of all, we're going to dust our surface for rolling out our dough. We've got our Cotswold flour again, locally produced and organic. We're just going to pour this on our chopping board and hope that the wind doesn't blow it all away. Right, here's our first piece of dough. We're going to roll this out to fit a baking tray or pizza tray we've got one at home for about this size. Another benefit of home cooking means you can buy exactly what you need. You're not overbuying, you're not wasting. Whereas with a lot of pre-packaged food like pizzas, pastas, whatever you want from a ready meal, you might not eat it all, so a lot of it might be waste. So as you can see, we've made a bit of a mess here. That's okay. Mess is creativity. Creativity is mess. So what we're going to do, I forgot to say this earlier, we're actually going to preheat the oven. So your oven will be preheated to the maximum temperature it can go to. We want it to be boiling. We want it to be really scorching hot. We want it to be as hot as the climate will be if we don't stop the climate crisis. So in the meantime, we're just going to relax and wait for our oven to heat up.
I'm the sous chef. I mean, I've been stirring the onions and they look great.
Right, so our pizza doughs are all rolled out, and we've got our tomato sauce, our asparagus that we parboiled for 2 minutes, and our caramelised onions. So now we're just going to assemble. So just going to take a bit of a blob on there. Doesn't really matter exact measurement. Doesn't really matter how much. Just give it, like, smush it out. Nice even base. The cheese was actually from Co-op, interestingly. But they've got a campaign at the moment supporting local farmers, so it's from an English farm, which is really nice. And once again, reducing the air miles. Right, we're next going to go in with our vegetables, I reckon, first. Just kind of scatter them around however you want. Also, obviously, you can use whatever vegetables you want. As we were saying earlier, just like look out for like seasonal veg or like locally grown veg where you can. Right, next we're going to put our caramelised onions on. Right, and finally we're going to get our goat's cheese, which I think I'm just going to tear up and put on. So you just kind of spread that evenly. You actually don't need as much cheese as you think, because it normally kind of melts around and just goes everywhere. This is optional, but there's actually a local restaurant in Bristol called Bertha's, a pizza restaurant, and they sell their hot honey, which is also made locally. So I'm just going to drizzle a tiny bit of this on top as well. We've also salt and peppered them as well. And ready for the oven. Right, here we go, we've got our pizza out of the oven, there's one still cooking. But there you go, there's a vegetarian, reasonably sustainable pizza, which was pretty easy to make. Back to the studio.
That pizza looked incredible. Stay tuned to Better Planet Live because we have the Wild Kitchen coming up for even more cooking. Izzie, my gorgeous chef, how are you? How was the pizza?
Thank you, it was lovely. I mean, you did get a little try, so
yeah,
I hope you enjoyed
it. It was absolutely delicious, and the honey was incredible. What I wanted to focus on for a quick second is the wine. Can we talk a little bit more about it?
So this is Tread Softly. It's an Australian rosé. It's vegan and they're great to sustainably grown, which is obviously great for the environment. They also, for every 6 bottles bought, they plant 1 native tree. So definitely, if you're planning on having a couple drinks, a good option to look into.
A couple?
A few.
Oh, 6
as many as you want.
So Izzie, you mentioned in the video that you're vegetarian. I suppose, how long has that been for, and what were your initial reasonings for doing that?
When I was 10, I was in school, and you know when they're kind of showing you about factory farming and all the not so very nice things. We were shown a video of factory farming with chickens, and I immediately, as a child, was like, that's horrible, very impressionable, decided to become vegetarian. And as I've grown up, I've kind of realised like the climate benefits of becoming vegetarian. So it's just kind of kept me going. And I love it, and it's nice being creative and trying to see what you can do with vegetables.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a misconception that, well, there might not be, the vegetarian ingredients tend to be more expensive. What would you say about that?
I mean, I think when you're buying like meat substitutes, that can definitely get quite expensive. But if you're kind of cooking from scratch, like making a very vegetable-based meal, it doesn't have to be expensive at all. So yeah, I think the more you can do from scratch, the cheaper it's going to be. And obviously, meat's quite expensive at the moment. So
have you tried veggie bacon?
I haven't tried veggie bacon. I've heard very mixed things though, and it looks a bit suspicious. But I'm not hating on it.
It made my tongue blue. But I'm not hating on it. Let's be sustainable. Top meal? Can you tell me?
Oh, I love a veggie lasagna because, not to plug, you know, climate friendly meals, but you can use up all the scraps, and it's a great crowd pleaser. Who doesn't love lasagna?
Not me. Okay, guys, it is finally time to go through our sustainability confessions. We asked you to submit any lifestyle habits you do that aren't always the most sustainable, and I believe we may have a few coming up now. Just give me 1 second to organise them. Thank you so much. And I am joined by Miss Gorgeous, Hattie Doyle, who is going to help me. So
having you that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So we're going to go through a few of these together. Yeah? Okay, so.
We've got some great answers. I was having a bit of a read off camera. Shall I read the first one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's so much easier in warm water. I mean, it is really, isn't it? It's just much more of an enjoyable experience.
In warm water?
Yeah.
I would not know.
You're not a fan of surfing?
I want to surf, but I don't surf yet.
Yeah.
Warm water, it sounds...
Always better than... Actually, not maybe in my instance. I like the cold water in the wild swimming.
Okay, so we have, I like to drink from straws, but not everywhere has paper straws. Yeah, I do love to drink from straws, and I do think that's more of a problem with, I mean, the place that you're going to. It's it's also kind of hard if you go to a pub and they've got plastic straws there. You kind of can't be like, why are you doing this?
And paper straws do disintegrate.
They disintegrate.
Sometimes it's annoying.
They disintegrate immediately.
Yeah. This one says, I'm a sucker for online shopping.
Sounds like Izzie.
It does sound, but you could change that to Vinted, for example. That's online shopping, and that's all secondhand. So.
And I think with Vinted, what's good about that is that you can kind of see the looks on a real person. When you're looking online, like those things that we're seeing, it's not real person.
They are models.
They are. Yeah, no, they are. So yeah. What about? I would love to be vegan, but bacon and cheese are too good. What do you think?
They're pretty good, right? I have no further comments.
And I might be flying to India over the summer.
Oh, I wonder who said that.
I wonder who said that.
You better be offsetting your carbon footprint. That's all I'm saying.
And there is a way that you can do that.
Yeah.
Online. Think you can pay extra money, which, again, with a lot of these confessions, sometimes it is hard to be sustainable and to keep, your costs down. It's not always accessible to be sustainable. So yeah, I mean, we do understand. I think that's the point of it. Do we want to say one more, Hattie? Do you want to read out one more?
Absolutely. This one says, I opt for using my car rather than public transport for my legs.
You've got bad legs at the minute.
I do have a bad ankle, yeah.
Yeah.
And I still walk, so, get out there, guys.
so true. Okay. So,
I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I feel like I've really been letting on all of your secrets, so thank you so much for having me, guys. I think that is all from me, is it? That is, all from me.
Okay, so The point is to remember that we don't have to be perfect all of the time. Everybody makes mistakes, but for the sake of our environment, every little helps. Today, our experts have taught us how to make more sustainable lifestyle choices, from activities to adventures and food to fashion. Thank you so much for tuning in to Better Planet Live. I hope you all feel a lot more well equipped to go and live your best sustainable girl summer. Don't forget to stay tuned to Better Planet Live, as we've got a brilliant segment coming up called The Wild Kitchen. Thank you to Hattie, Kayla, Sofia and Izzie, and goodbye from me and everyone in the studio. And remember folks, there's no rest for the wicked.
Hello and welcome to the Wild Kitchen. Today we have an exciting show lined up for you all about sustainable eating and foraging. Humans were hunter-gatherers for 90,000 years, so it is in our nature to forage for food and practice. This practice is making a comeback. Earlier this week, our team met with renowned forager and chef Elissa to pick some wild garlic from Lee Woods in Bristol. She is soon to release her new cookbook, From Forest to Fork, and show us how to make a delicious risotto recipe from the foraged ingredients. We also have an exclusive interview with Christabel Hamer, an award-winning organic farmer and chef. We will be asking her about sustainable farming practices and shopping for local produce. But before we show you that, Bobby and Greg have been out to ask the people of Bristol what they think sustainable food is and the impacts of choices we make as a consumer.
We're here on the Downs in Bristol and we're going to be asking the public
what they think about sustainable food and what veg is in season at the moment.
What comes to mind when you think of sustainable food?
My Uncle Des's garden used to grow everything.
Organic, vegetables and things locally sourced, really.
Not mass produced, so local food.
What do you do to eat sustainably?
Well, obviously foraging elderflower today, so I work at a restaurant locally. What we try to do a lot is use sort of forage ingredients like venison that is shot in over the Forest of Dean. I think using stuff like that is far more sustainable than sort of factory farming, really.
I eat meat once a week, like any type of meat. I just eat it once a week, so yeah.
And I go to an organic farm for my meats if I get meat.
Do you know what veg is currently in season?
Asparagus.
Lettuce and tomatoes and cucumber.
Well, we've got elderflower. Tomatoes are coming into season, so it's the end of asparagus season, which we're using a lot at the restaurant.
Summer fruits, strawberries.
What do you think is better for the environment? Tomatoes grown locally but in a greenhouse, or imported from like New Zealand?
Gonna go with grown locally.
Local.
Well, I would have assumed locally, but I mean,
but
I don't know if in a heated greenhouse. I don't know.
Grown locally.
Locally, yeah, but it's getting them, isn't it?
Definitely wouldn't say imported from New Zealand. There's obviously quite a lot of shipping costs.
Okay. Would you be surprised if I told you that it's actually imported from New Zealand?
Yeah, I would, because I thought there's a word for it, isn't there, where it comes over, it's got those miles. Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yes, because when you think how far it is from New Zealand.
Do you know what's better for the environment, importing food by plane or by ship?
I'd probably say by plane.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously planes are faster but use a lot more fuel, don't they? So I would have expected ships, but then
Probably by ship.
Ship.
You'd say ship.
Okay, and do you know how much better? Like how many times would you?
I'd say like 1.7 times better.
Okay, so would you be surprised if I told you it's actually 100 times better for the environment?
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
Actually 100 times.
100
Is
better for the
it?
environment.
is it?
I was going to say 6.
I mean, obviously that's better. I mean, I would rather.
To be honest, I was going to say ship, but then I felt like after the last question, it was going to be a trick again. Yeah.
All right, interview's complete. Big up.
Yeah,
Great
it was all me. All the hard work.
Very interesting stuff there, and how lovely to hear from some foragers. So if you didn't catch that, it's in fact more sustainable to buy tomatoes shipped from New Zealand in our wintertime than it would be to buy them from a heated greenhouse locally. Nearly 6 times more, in fact. It would still be more sustainable to buy tomatoes locally in the summer when they're in season and do not require heated greenhouses to be grown. However, this just shows that shopping locally does not always mean produce is more sustainable. It is important to consider how produce is grown, so make sure that you're shopping for food that's local and in season. Nectarines, apricots, new potatoes and spinach are just a few examples of in-season fruit and veg at the moment. If you go online and look up food seasonal calendars, there are plenty of resources to help you find what's in season. Now, we want to ask you at home some of the same questions we asked the public. We've created a poll to hear all of your thoughts on sustainable food and what you do to eat sustainably. Appearing now on the screen should be a QR code that you can scan with your mobile phone to fill out our poll. This will take you to a web page where you can input your answers. There are a few questions on there, so let us know your thoughts. We'll keep the QR code in the corner of the screen, so please make sure you fill it out over the next few minutes. Whilst you answer that, we're going to interview Crystal Hamer, a chef and farmer on a sustainable farm. The farm that Krista works on was rewilded a decade ago and is now a popular tourist attraction. Krista cooks up tasty treats using ingredients grown on the farm, and she has seen visitor counts rise by 80% since the establishment of her restaurant on site. Hi Krista, can you hear me?
Hiya. Yeah,
How are you doing, Krista?
Yeah, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So, what practices does your farm have that make it more sustainable than traditional farms?
So at our farm, we kind of focus a lot on reducing fertilizer use. Fertilizer, it's expensive to produce, it's bad for the environment, it gives off a lot of carbon emissions, and we kind of move towards more applied techniques. So we kind of apply nutrients to the soil as and when they're needed, as opposed to just kind of blanketing the earth in fertilizer. We've also moved away from monocultures on our farms, and we try and grow multiple crops in one field, which is better for soil health, and it's also better for kind of pests and the pesticide use that we can limit through doing that.
Great, that's super interesting. So why is it good to shop for seasonal veg?
So shopping for seasonal veg, it's really important. First of all, the quality of the produce that you get is going to be much, much higher because these veg have grown in like times and areas where they are supposed to, they've not been forced to. Shopping for the seasonal stuff, it reduces emissions as it no longer has to be shipped over from other countries, or other times, even if something is grown locally, it might be grown in a greenhouse or with, again, lots of fertilizers or kind of lots of additional elements which are also not great for the environment. So when you shop for seasonal veg, you're avoiding all of these kind of problems while still getting kind of higher quality and almost better value for money in a sense.
Amazing. So where is the best place to buy seasonal veg?
I would say to primarily, if you can, to shop locally to see if you can go to local greengrocers if that's an option for you in your area. Often those kind of smaller, like locally owned shops are the ones that will focus on getting this like locally sourced veg and seasonal stuff. However, some larger supermarkets do it. I think it's a good there. You can still get them from the larger corporations. However, it might be more important to take steps where you educate yourself on what is seasonal and what should you expect to see on shelves at a certain time of year, and then kind of actively choose to use those more rather than going for non-seasonal stuff.
Amazing. And what would you recommend to the public who want to eat more sustainably?
I would say, kind of going back to my last point, to again shop more locally if you can. Maybe see if you can support the smaller businesses in your area. Again, I understand that is not an option for everyone. And it's kind of, to focus on this seasonal produce, because again, you will have better quality of food, and often it's cheaper because there's not been all these added elements where you have to, like fertilizer or shipping, that you have to take into account for.
Awesome. And so what can people do to reduce their food waste?
So the kind of first steps that I would say to reducing food waste is planning. Planning what you're going to be eating, being really conscious about it, being conscious about it when you buy these things. I know it's so easy to go into shops and you see a packet of blueberries and you go like, oh, that'll be great. And then if they don't get eaten during the week, that's just waste. So yeah, planning, and then maybe kind of being aware, batch cooking if you have the time, and then even if you can't get around to eating or like feeding everyone with food you bought, then putting that in the freezer and you can have it another time. Something I would also say is some food banks do accept fresh produce, not all, but some do, so it might be worth, if you've maybe got stuff that is still going to be in date, but for example you're going away, you're going on holiday, you've got a work trip or something, and you know you're not going to be able to eat it, it's worth always just checking if a local food bank around you is going to accept that produce, because you could always drop it off there.
Amazing, Chris. I wanted to ask one final question just to give our viewers at home sort of a little help. What is your favourite sustainable meal to cook at the moment?
So what I've been cooking at the moment, I like to make a kind of twist on ratatouille. You can get the locally at our farm, like locally grown tomatoes and aubergines and courgettes, and it's a really lovely dish, especially when the produce is really, really fresh. And it's a very summery dish as well, so I think coming into the summer is something that we'll be making a lot more.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Krista, for those really insightful answers. Now it's time to show you how our team got on earlier this week with forager and chef Elissa Grover. Elissa forages her ingredients here in Bristol to make delicious seasonal and local meals. Let's see how they got on.
I'm here in Paradise Bottom in Lee Woods to go foraging with foraging expert Elissa Grover. What are we going to be up to today?
So we're going to take a walk around the woods, and we're hoping to find some wild garlic, some stinging nettles, and hopefully cook with some of those ingredients later.
Amazing.
Yeah, we've got a great day for it, so should we get going?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay.
So, as you can see down here, or you might be able to smell it first, is we've got wild garlic. And wild garlic will typically grow in environments like this, near a stream, in a woodland, where it's got everything it needs to thrive.
And how would you identify this plant?
So, wild garlic grows from a really smooth stem to a really smooth leaf. And it's a flat leaf that also has a lot of blossoms. So, they're not in bloom right now, but these little buds here will have a white flower when they blossom. And also, you can smell it and you know from the habitat.
Okay, should we pick some then?
I wouldn't say we should pick this wild garlic. it's not a great idea to forage from the past just in case dogs eat the loo on the way. But there are hillsides where there's a great abundance of wild garlic, which is probably a lot cleaner.
Okay,
so we'll head that way now.
Yeah, it really does smell amazing.
Yeah, and as you can see, this is the kind of abundance I was talking about earlier.
Wow.
This whole hillside is covered in wild garlic.
So how are we going to pick this?
So you want to look for the smaller, younger leaves. So one like this maybe, as they're a lot less fibrous than the older leaves. And at the end of the season as well, some of these stems taste a little bit like spring onion if you're into that. But what you want to do is you want to pinch the leaves off or pinch the stem off and avoid pulling up the roots of the plant, as we want to keep the roots there so that they can continue to grow. Here. So these are stinging nettles. So for this one we're going to glove up, so I'll give you that. Stinging nettles are around pretty much all year round, and they grow in woodlands and they're pretty common. You can most likely tell what they look like because they grow everywhere and they've got really jagged leaves like you can see just there.
Amazing. So which ones do we pick?
So as kind of with most plants, you want to try and pick the younger leaves.
Like this?
Yeah, that's perfect. So just those ones at the top there, and then just the leaves and the stems, because we don't want to uproot it, and that's it.
And what do we use these for?
So you can use stinging nettles for all types of things. So they've got anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. So you could boil it down into a tea, or you could blanch it and use it in a pasta dough.
Lovely. Let's get foraging.
Let's do it.
Amazing haul here.
Yeah, we've done really well. It's important though to remember to just take what we need, just to make sure we leave enough for everyone else who's foraging around. And also be confident in your positive ID of what you've got. If you're ever in doubt, it's always better to leave it.
With that, back to the kitchen.
A lovely film there from Elissa and Abby. We just want to remind you that, like Elissa, it's really important to do your research to forage safely and responsibly. Do check your local news. Just a few weeks ago, we saw a wild garlic in Marlborough, in our neighbouring county Wiltshire, was contaminated due to flooding and sewage leaks, and this left the risk of E. coli. Fortunately, though, the garlic should be safe for next year's harvest. Last year, we also saw the management of London's Epping Forest urge people not to forage for mushrooms, as they are vital to the health of the trees, water supply and the whole ecosystem. The authorities even said people continuing to forage these mushrooms could face prosecution. Foraging has been on the rise for the last few decades. We can see there were twice as many Google searches for foraging in 2019 compared to 2005, so it's important to leave enough for people and the environment alike. Elissa also gave us some tips on how you can eat more sustainably and why you should. She recommends looking for suppliers and restaurants who are transparent about the life cycle of their produce. As we saw earlier, shopping locally helps to reduce your carbon footprint, as the food miles from transporting food across the globe are massively reduced. But it also boosts your community by supporting local suppliers while ultimately giving you better tasting, higher quality produce. But that's enough from me. Let's see what you folks have been saying on our poll. We have been asking you about how you got into sustainable food, your favourite sustainable meals, and where you think the industry could take us. So the first question we asked you was, are you into sustainable food, and if so, what got you into it? So I'll start off with my view actually. Well, I mean, obviously aside from doing a biology degree from the last 3 years, I've also been watching Clarkson's Farm. And for those of you who don't know, Jeremy Clarkson is a celebrity former motorist but now turned farmer. And seeing the quality of the local food that he's managed to produce with his amazing team on his farm, combined with the food that they're producing on other farms around the area, and then bringing all the produce together, whether it's animal materials or plants or whatever, all together in a farm shop and a restaurant, I thought was really wholesome. But let's hear what you guys say. So one comment here says, I always loved gardening with my grandparents. My granddad's onions were a thing of beauty. They never wasted any of the veg that they grow. And it feels like a completely different way of eating nowadays, but I try to garden as much as possible. I'm sure that's something we can all relate to. Gardening at the moment is something that we're all trying to get into our life a bit more. Maybe more so in the past, but now it's more difficult to find the time to do that. And aside from its therapeutic qualities, it's really worth, as you'll see in our next film, putting the effort in to get the local produce. A few questions. I'm vegetarian. Does that count as sustainable food? Yeah, absolutely. You're reducing your carbon footprint massively. Let's move on to the next question then. What sustainable meals have you eaten recently? Well, I'll start with me again. Back at the restaurant I work at, which is just outside London, they have a venison forager. Now, basically means when the chefs decide they want venison on the menu, they ring up the forager and he will go and eliminate one of the local deer. And this is really important. Deer populations in the area I'm from, as they are across the UK, they need controlling. If there's too many deer, the effects knock on throughout the ecosystem, right down to the water supply in some cases, and that's because of their overgrazing on the brambles. So, and from the deer's perspective, overpopulation can cause them to become weak as they're all competing for the same materials. So controlling populations really is a good thing, and of course you can get free meat out of it at the same time, then you are doing something sustainable. A few ideas from you guys. You've got wild garlic risotto. That sounds pretty amazing. Maybe we'll see that coming up later on. Fresh salad, local butcher, locally sourced meats. That's the same kind of thing as I was talking about in my restaurant. Let's move on then to the final question. What could be done to make food more sustainable? My restaurant also makes an effort to use all the parts of the animals. So with the venison, for example, the steaks, the highly sought after parts of the animal, they'll make up the mains and the specials, but other parts of the animal which you might not expect to find on a menu and maybe historically would have just been chucked in the bin, they can be used to create pâtés and other things like croquettes for the starters. A comment here said aeroplane food could be more sustainable by focusing on non-perishable ingredients rather than processed foods, and that's quite interesting. If you look at the the natural foods that last longer, like potatoes can stay for like 6 months in a farm barn quite happily. So maybe if we base dishes on foods that naturally last longer, rather than adding loads of preservatives and additives, that would be more sustainable for the planet. Another comment said, eating like Hugh Fernie, Whittingstall, no leftovers and all seasonal, all good for you. And that's really a nice one to finish on because that's the essence of what we're trying to do in this show. So some really great ideas there from all you folks watching. Let's now rejoin the action where Elissa and Abby have made it back to the kitchen to cook up that lovely risotto.
Risotto, we're going to use some seasonal veg that we've picked up from a sustainable shop, and we're also going to use our seasonal greens that we foraged for this morning. And yeah, it should be really good.
Awesome. So these have been washed and cleaned, so they're really nice and good to go, and now we've just got to prep our veg.
So first we're going to go in with the asparagus, and to separate the woody ends from the fresh tips at the top, you can just snap them, just like that, and that's the asparagus prepped.
Lovely.
Next up, we're going to chop our onions, so we'll be right back after we've got that all chopped up for you. So we're going to finely chop the onion, and we're also going to prep our asparagus by just snapping off the end of the woody bits.
We're also going to chop it into like 2 centimetre sized pieces, little sticks, as we're showing you here. So we've chopped up our asparagus, and what we've done is we've saved all our scraps so we can make stock out of them later.
And now we've got our pot on top oil just in the back there. We're going to blanch our veg that we've collected earlier. So this is going to soften up the veg, and also with the stinging nettles, we're going to do those for a couple of minutes to get rid of those stingers. And the wild garlic will do for about 15 seconds. So we fried off our asparagus until it's tender, and we're going to add that to the risotto when everything's cooked.
We've put our onions in to fry off, and now we're going to add the rice to toast it. So we've zested a lemon, and what we're going to do is we're going to reserve a little bit for topping, but the rest is going to go into the pan with the risotto.
So now that the risotto has been cooking for about half an hour, we're going to add the puree which we made earlier into the pan and mix it through, as well as the asparagus that we fried off. Now that we've mixed everything together and plated it up, it's time to try. After you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, that's really,
That's
really good.
so good.
That is delicious. The lemon as well.
It's unbelievable that we got all this flavour from just this morning. That is
day as well.
Delicious. And I'm going to move it to this side of the table. Thank you so much everyone for tuning in.
It's been so much fun having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming. You've taught us so much. I'm sure the audience is so grateful as well.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing. Thank you very much. See you guys later.
Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Elissa and Abby. That looked delicious and I can't wait to try some. We hope you've enjoyed following along to that cooking segment and encourage you to check out more of Elissa's delicious recipes in her new cookbook. We've been given a pre-release copy here and want to remind you that the official release date is 2 weeks from now on the 14th of June. Her book will retail for just $10.99 and includes 100 recipes. All are vegetarian and include tips on foraging for your ingredients. I've tried some of her recipes myself and they went down an absolute treat with my friends and family. She's currently working on her second book, which outlines the best practices for allotment and at-home gardening. Before we end the show, I want to give an excerpt from her book. Foraging is an immersive journey into nature's pantry. The ingredients are a reward of patience and keen observation. It demands respect for our natural world, taking only what is needed and allowing the forager to take in the present moment. The ancient practice of foraging fosters a deep connection between humans and the environment on which we depend. Now that's all we have lined up for you today at the Wild Kitchen. We hope that you've enjoyed watching along and are keen to get out into nature and forage your next meal. This brings us to the end of this Better Planet Live broadcast. Hopefully you have learned something new about rewilding and head out into your gardens to enjoy National Gardening Week. Also, make sure to try out some of the sustainable practices that the EcoEdit suggested that can make a big difference. We want to thank all of the contributors on today's show: Ed Druitt, Ollie Pink, Elissa Grover and Christabel Hamer. We also want to give a special thank you to Ellie Mackay, whose guidance and expertise make this show possible. All of the people working on this broadcast today, including myself, are students at the University of Bristol, studying a Master's in Science Communication for a Better Planet, and we have been showcasing our variety of skills. We will be graduating soon and are looking to put our skills to use. If you want to support us, reach out or follow our journeys. Our contact details and portfolios will be linked below. Thank you for watching, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.